Welcome to the Fulcrum Point, the podcast that's putting a spotlight on Catholic education in Western Washington, looking at students, their families, their schools, and how they're impacting our larger community. I'm your host, Brian Callanan, and this show is brought to you by the Fulcrum Foundation. We're tackling something in this episode that affects so many young people and their families. We're talking about student mental health. A warning to anybody dealing with these kinds of issues personally, we're going to be talking about some sensitive topics here. The Centers for Disease Control says 11% of children ages 3 to 17 have been diagnosed with anxiety disorders, and more than 20% of high schoolers have seriously considered taking their own lives in the past year. Schools in the Archdiocese of Seattle are responding to this crisis by bringing social and emotional health into the curriculum at the pre-K through 8th grade levels. We're going to be talking with a counselor working with kids of those ages to learn more about what sorts of issues younger students are dealing with, from high levels of anxiety to cyberbullying, and talk about some of the innovative ways counselors are handling those concerns. We're also talking with a director from the Archdiocese who's spearheaded a program to train students to be mental health facilitators in their schools, students who are actually now training their teachers with a new approach that is literally saving lives. The challenge of student mental health and the uplifting response of our Catholic schools. That's ahead on this episode of The Fulcrum Point.
At St. Thomas More School, we promise to know your child, love your child, and prepare your child for life while striving for heaven. Come see what it means to truly belong at St. Thomas More School in Linwood, because your child is made for more.
I'm talking with Denise Mullins, a counselor at Holy Rosary Edmonds and St. Thomas More up here in Linwood, both pre-K through 8th grade schools. Denise, glad to be with you at St. Thomas More today. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you for being here. It's an honor to have been asked.
A lot of listeners may have an understanding of that high school counselor they visited back in the day to deal with whatever issues they were working on, but bringing this concept of mental health services down to the grade school level is a relatively recent phenomenon. And you've been a youth counselor for the better part of 3 decades in public and private schools. What sort of behavioral health work is going on now at these lower grade levels, and why?
Yeah, so you're right. High school counselors, that was a known thing. But it was kind of in the late 90s when I was actually in the Edmonds School District. That's where I started my career. And I was one of the first full-time school counselors at a dedicated school. And the school that I was at saw the need to really help students who were struggling with different social skills issues, friendship issues, attention, anger, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. So I was there full-time, got to build a great program. I think what's different now is that it's really being brought into the standard curriculum so that it's not just students who are struggling with issues, but now it's being seen as more of a, let's have everyone have these skills so that I'm teaching in the classrooms now.
Yeah.
And so that everyone comes out with this basis of basic mental health awareness and social emotional learning.
Tell me what that looks like in the classroom when we're talking about being part of the curriculum there, social and emotional learning. I know there's some morning meetings that go on here in the classroom. Can you describe what happens on an average day here at St. Thomas More?
Yeah. When I came to St. Thomas More, this is my 5th year here, one of the things that I brought in was this idea of having a morning meeting. And just so that, yes, we're all here to learn academically, but we have to realize too that students are people first, right? And so just having them come in, having them be personally greeted and welcomed by their teacher as well as their classmates so that they have that opportunity to share with their teachers or with their classmates if something big is going on in their world or in their lives.
Yeah. So they're not just jumping into academics. They're actually talking about what they're dealing with personally. And I'm in your office right now looking at the zones of regulation here, which some people might know about, but not everybody. Let's talk about this. These are kids who are younger, in the younger grades, like K1, 2, where they're looking at these different colors and saying, okay, I'm feeling this way. They'll actually point at a color and say, this is how I'm feeling, but maybe I'm leaning towards this. Can you describe that a little bit, please?
So Zones of Regulation is a program that I brought to the classrooms this year. And it's really about not only identifying their feelings, but also their levels of intensity of the feelings.
Yeah.
So I know you all can't see it, but the colors blue is a low energy zone. And then green is that calm energy, yellow is slightly elevated, and then red, by definition, is out of control. And so really teaching the kids to identify what zone they are in, and having them name the feelings, but also just realizing that there are different times when different zones are appropriate. And then really keying into how does their body feel? So really learning their body signals.
Yeah.
So when your eyes are closing or when you are feeling that blue zone, low energy, you're not moving a whole lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that might happen on a Monday morning. And so how do you then, what tools can you use to pick yourself up to get yourself ready for learning.
Yeah.
And so then on the opposite side, yellow can have positive feelings like you're too excited, or you can also be more of that frustrated or the negative type feelings. We emphasize that all feelings are okay and all feelings are natural. There are different situations where you do want to be a little bit high energy. If you're in a sporting event and you're being competitive, you don't want to be calm in the green zone. You want to have that little bit of extra excitement and energy.
That's right.
So having students picking up on their body signals, when do they have the tense muscles? When do they have the foggy thinking?
Yeah.
And so then really picking up on what tools can you use to get yourself back into the appropriate zone.
And I'm sitting here with you, Denise, in your office, and we're actually looking at this reset station, if you will, as you call it here. It's a caddy that is full of a lot of different items. I'm squeezing the stress ball myself right now because sometimes, I tell you, this can be a tough life we're in. But let me know about this. You actually have some different items that you can give to kids such that they can help regulate themselves when it comes to their emotions.
Yep.
What's going on?
In every classroom, at the beginning of the year, I will supply a caddy. And it's full of different types of fidgets or calming activities. Every classroom has at least one set of noise-canceling headphones for those students who may feel overstimulated or just want some quiet space. So they can use these headphones. And any of these reset tools are available in each classroom. A student just has to give a nod to the teacher. The teachers have all been trained of when a student is allowed to use the reset station.
Yeah.
Students have 3 to 5 minutes to calm themselves down, get themselves regulated. And then, yes, there's squeeze balls, there's twisty toys, there's marbles.
You've got the timer here you've got 3 minutes to chill out or whatever, that type thing.
Yep. And also the bubble timer itself is colorful bubbles that are coming down, and so it's calming.
I love it.
And so we talk to the kids often about these are tools, not toys. And so these are tools to help them to regulate and to get themselves back in that learning space.
Got it.
Yeah.
There's a very special part of your support staff here at St. Thomas More that maybe not a lot of people know about. Happens to walk around on 4 legs. Could you let us know what's going on there?
All right. You must be talking about Charlie.
Oh, yeah.
Charlie is our emotional support dog. Our principal, Rich, brought him in this year, and he's been great just as a calming presence in the front office. Kids can take him on a walk, and he's there. And who doesn't love doggy snuggles, right?
Woof. I love it, too. I wanted to ask a bigger question. Are kids at younger ages more anxious than they used to be? You've been in this business for a while. Let's talk about that.
I would say so. I think anxiety is what has popped up. The trend has been there, but I think post-COVID, we've seen that a lot more as well. As I was thinking about it, I think the impact of social media and just literally having the all info at our fingertips now. And so what I think adds to the anxiety is that kids, people, all of us seem to always be on. We're constantly stimulated. There's a lack of quiet. We're multitasking. My own kids would be watching a movie and yet playing a video game.
Oh,
and
man.
I'm like, how do you do that?
I can't do it. I have such a tough time with that, Denise. Yeah.
And so learning how to be still, how to be quiet, how to be aware of yourself, I think that is a practice that we've lost. There's this need to be on. They feel the need to respond. When you get a notification or a text message comes in, sometimes I think as an adult, I've learned to you put it aside, you answer it when you can.
Yeah.
Kids are like, no, right now I have to because so-and-so is going to be upset at me if I don't.
Right. And can I take that the next level here? Because I did want to make sure I talked about cyberbullying with you. The Cyberbullying Research Center, which is a nonprofit that studies this issue, says about 1 out of 6 kids aged 12 to 18 report getting cyberbullied. This can happen at younger ages too. Can you talk about how you deal with this issue, how you talk to students about it, how you talk to parents about it too? Because I know a number of them are listening right now.
I do come into classrooms and do bullying awareness and prevention lessons. So I think it starts with that foundation about how to recognize what bullying is. It's repeated, it's targeted, and there's always a power differential. So having kids learn about what bullying means and then taking that next step to let's see what this means in the cyber world. So we talk about cyberbullying as any types of the emotional bullying that happens over any sort of technology.
Yeah.
When we see cyberbullying, it's in group chats and texts. And then new to me recently was targeting in online games. So either nasty talk in online games or whether they're targeting specifically to get someone out.
Yeah, making sure this kid loses or
right.
whatever.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's happening.
Yeah.
Having students learn how to recognize it and then how to refuse it. If it's in a group chat, do you remove yourself?
Yeah.
Not only removing yourself, but just being able to say, hey, that's not cool. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Exiting yourself out of the chat.
And taking yourself too out of the cyber world and into the real world. Where are some trusted adults you can connect with. Can you talk about that piece of it?
Absolutely. Talk to kids all the time about who are your trusted adults. You usually have them name at least 2 at school, 2 at home, just so that they know who they can go to. It's important that, especially with cyberbullying as well, that they are reporting it to their adults. Screenshots, right? So taking screenshots so that they can show their adult exactly what happened. I love the phrase, you don't have to be loud to be heard, right? And so I was just talking to kids about when you are seeing a post of some sort, if you don't feel confident actually approaching or refusing someone directly, make sure not to like it, right? Because if someone is posting, they're wanting that approval. So giving them that silence in a sense, because that silence is going to speak a lot, to not give them that audience. So you're not giving the person who's doing the bullying the power behind that.
That is a great lesson there. Thank you for that. I did want to talk about another important but difficult part of your work, responding to big crisis events. I actually remember when my daughter was at Our Lady of Guadalupe down in West Seattle in middle school, a teacher she'd only had for a few months ended up passing away suddenly. Very difficult time for everybody at the school. I was very glad that kids had support at the school, and I think those types of events can turn into an all-hands-on-deck type situation where you'll go to other Catholic schools to help out as needed, right?
Right. Yeah, when an unexpected event occurs, yes, the students are impacted, but you're right, also the staff is impacted. And so the staff who's normally there to provide the support for students being impacted themselves, it takes a little bit more, right? So we have a team of counselors who will come in and provide that support, refer out when necessary for the bigger things. Staff can have their employee assistance programs, things like that. But a team will come in and help support even the communication pieces. So helping the principal to write the letter to staff, to parents, and then really important is getting a consistent message out to every classroom. And so that all students, when they come in that first school day after the event occurs, they're getting that consistent message of here's what happened, here's what we know, here's what we can share. It will help dispel the rumors. It stops the questions. We can always just then say, this is what we're allowed to share at this point.
Yeah.
And then from that point, obviously, there will be students who are more greatly impacted. It will trigger different events and different losses from the youngers. It might even be, my dog died last year, to more serious events, right, that have happened in that student's life. And so then being able to have a system where students can go and talk to another counselor one-on-one.
Yeah,
if they need that.
Very important. I did want to talk a little bit about where your work is going, if you will, because you run a program to train middle schoolers to be peer conflict managers at recess. I think this is a terrific idea. I know we're going to be talking about this in our next segment too, but I feel like this is one time where I think you might say training yourself out of a job would be a great thing here. Tell me about this. What's this training all about? What are these students doing?
So the middle school students here at St. Thomas More are on a rotational basis. They go out and they are conflict managers or problem solvers out at the lunch recess for the younger students. You can see over here, I've got a poster. It's called Kelso's Choices. And so it's a conflict management system. And so I've gone in to teach the younger grades, starting out from how do you identify what's a big problem, what's a small problem, knowing, again, those trusted adults are who you go to for the big problems, but the small problems, things that might be considered, if you tell a teacher, might be considered tattling. So how do you solve those small problems by yourself? So anything from talking it out to walking away to making a deal with them, sharing things. So I teach the younger students this, and then this is also the foundation for when the middle schoolers go out. They have clipboards and they have this Kelso's Choice image, and so they can actually approach students who are in conflict, minor conflicts, to help them solve their concerns.
I love it. Giving a middle schooler the power of a clipboard. That's great.
So it provides increased supervision, right? Because the adults can't do it all out there. So increased supervision gives the middle schoolers an opportunity for service hours.
Right.
It teaches them empathy, right? They're actually out there practicing the empathy. And of course, it builds the connection between our upper level kids and our lower level kids.
Very important.
Yeah.
Denise, I need to wrap up with you. I wanted to ask this question. Why is the work you do important? Why are Catholic schools putting such a big emphasis on student mental health right now?
I think it's so that it normalizes, right? So that mental health becomes something that they see as important. School counselors aren't there just for the kids who are struggling or have deficits in certain social skills. Social emotional learning is a skill that everyone needs to know. We're interacting with people all the time. So simply those social skills and how to regulate your own emotions, how to interact with others, be a team player, collaborate. Those are all skills that a foundation of mental health can provide. I'm part of the support staff. I'm a known person around here so that I can become one of those trusted adults for them. And it's just that the emphasis on really knowing yourself and knowing how to be with others in a healthy way.
I love it. Denise Mullins, a school counselor at Holy Rosary and St. Thomas More, thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you.
Coming up, we're going to be learning more about what's happening in the upper grades in the Seattle Archdiocese when it comes to mental health, including a new program where the students are teaching the teachers a thing or two. That's next on The Fulcrum Point.
To graduates across Western Washington, congratulations! Students from our Catholic high schools are stepping into the future grounded in faith, shaped by community, and ready to lead lives of purpose. Fulcrum is proud to support the students, educators, and school communities who make that future possible. Together, we're helping every student thrive. Congratulations, class of 2026.
I'm joined now by Joe Cotton, Executive Director of the Office of the Vicar General for the Archdiocese of Seattle. Joe, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks, Brian. It's great to be here with you.
And you're going to have to explain that job title. What is it that you do for the Archdiocese?
Yes, it's a mouthful.
Yeah.
So the Office of the Vicar General at the Chancery, our Vicar General is Father Gary Lazzaroni, and his office is what houses all the pastoral ministries of the Archdiocese.
Okay.
We're organized into 3 departments. We have our lifelong formation department, which does all their youth ministry, young adult ministry, faith formation, marriage and family, things like that. We have our intercultural integration department, so all of our work with the Catholic Hispanic community and all the many cultural communities, Catholic cultural communities that we work with. And then lastly, our pastoral care and outreach department, which we have 14 different outreach ministries that go to the margins and attend to the corporal and spiritual works of mercy. So my job is to just orchestrate all of that and support and make sure all of that is happening as it should.
Well, keep up the good work. Thank you
you
for that, Joe. And just another warning here, folks. We're going to be talking about some very sensitive topics here, including suicide. And Joe, I got to say, even in giving that warning, I feel like I need to check myself a little bit for a shadow of stigma here because it's such a personal issue. We shouldn't be talking about suicide and suicide prevention. You said something to me in our meeting before this podcast. If kids are thinking about it, we need to talk about it. Can you help me with this? What do you say to people who might be thinking, we shouldn't be talking about suicide. We're going to give kids ideas. Help me.
There is a lot of stigma around suicide, especially a lot of fear circulating it. Our mental health ministry, one of its primary goals is to reduce stigma and to help people realize that's actually a myth. That if we talk to our kids about it, it's going to plant an idea or things like that. The opposite is true. That we need to be talking about this. We need to realize that this is just something that a lot of kids are experiencing, and it's not something we need to be afraid of. I know in our Catholic tradition, there is a lot of worry around suicide because we have language in the catechism around it being a sin.
Yeah.
And it's just important to note that there's a distinction there. When we're talking about the sin, we're not talking about people that are dealing with a mental health issue or a mental illness of some kind, which is really what's driving most of what we're seeing.
Yeah.
And there is no sin in that. It's almost the same as saying someone who succumbs to cancer or someone who succumbs to an addiction, that would be sinful. The same is true here. People are suffering from profound mental illness or mental health challenges. And if suicide results in that, there is no sin in that. And the church really is teaching that all that exists for people that struggle with that or succumb to that are wrapped in love, are understood fully by our God, and experience resurrection, just like everyone else.
Thank you for breaking that down with me. I do want to talk about the Catholic Lifesaver Corps. This is a high school level peer-to-peer mental health support group. Students get trained by students to do this work. We were talking in the last segment there about how some of the middle school kids at St. Thomas More are actually on crisis resolution out on the schoolyard here, but this is something a little bit different when we're talking about the Lifesaver Corps. The Fulcrum Foundation provided the seed money to start this program in 2022, but give us the full backstory. How did this program come about? What's it all about?
Yeah, it's a really amazing initiative, and how it came about was pretty remarkable. It all started with a 16-year-old teenager down in Los Angeles. His name was Jake Novak. He experienced suicide in his high school. He was very dissatisfied with the school's response to that. In his words, he felt like they didn't do anything about it. He felt very passionate about needing to be on the front lines, wanting to do things to prevent something like that from happening again. So he went and found his own resource, and he found an organization called Living Works, which does suicide prevention training worldwide. And he took their 4-hour suicide prevention course called Safe Talk. And then he went on to take their course called Assist, which is how to do a full suicide intervention. And after doing those training courses with them, he found them very helpful So he wanted to take it one step further. So he approached the organization and asked them to certify him as a trainer so that he could teach the Safe Talk workshop to his friends.
Right. Peer to peer. Yeah.
And get the word out so that prevention could actually occur. The organization at the time had rules in place that a teenager or a young person couldn't play this role. They felt like it was too heavy or that a young person couldn't handle that. And so they told him no. He didn't really accept that, as good teenagers do.
I have a few of them too, right.
And so he really encouraged them to recognize that he did have the capacity to do this. And after a little bit of convincing, got them to actually put him through the Train the Trainer program to make him a workshop facilitator. It just so happened that the gentleman who trained him was one of our own here in the Seattle Archdiocese. His name is David Pina. He's a retired Air Force chaplain and a longtime trainer with Living Works, who all of a sudden has this teenager in his class, which was new to him. Mm-hmm. He was so impressed with Jake's capacity and maturity and ability to do this. He would later tell me he did better than most of his adult counterparts in terms of being able to run this program. Mm-hmm. So David contacted me as the head of the mental health ministry with the Archdiocese, told me about Jake, and then asked me over coffee, what would it be like to start an initiative that creates carbon copies of Jake and trains our young people in our Catholic schools to run this Safe Talk workshop for their peers and have a peer-to-peer model.
Yeah.
The whole mental health committee took that idea and said, of course we should do that. That makes a lot of sense. They're going to be able to frame this issue in a way that their peers are going to understand better than if you or I were trying to teach this to them. Kids are going to tune in differently to them. Just makes sense. So with the help of Fulcrum Foundation, who gave us an initial grant and then sustained us to get this off the ground, we launched our first cohort of 8 students in 2 different Catholic high schools in 2022. And off we went.
And where are we now with that? It's in a number of schools.
Yeah, so at the moment we're in 4 Catholic high schools. We're in O'Day, we're in John Paul II, we're in Seton Catholic, and we're in Archbishop Murphy. And they all have teams embedded in their schools, and along with trained adults that kind of flank them and support them in those efforts. And then they go out and they run this 4-hour workshop for students in the school. And they also do it for some of our surrounding parishes as well. So we're making sure we're reaching all of our young people, whether they're in Catholic school or in public school or homeschool.
Super important. And it really sounds like these students who are getting this training and then talking to others and maybe even training others, it's almost like a force multiplier effect. It feels like maybe you're changing the culture when talking about suicide prevention.
And that's exactly what happens. What we were surprised to find is that the students who are embedded in the school, they become known by the entire student body as, hey, those guys know how to address this issue. So what we're finding is the Catholic Lifesaver Corps members in the school suddenly get approached by kids they don't even know in the hallways who say, hey, I have a friend. They're talking about things. I don't know what to do. Help me. And then they come alongside them and support them in that. The other thing that's happening that Living Works provides things like stickers and certificates and things like that. So as they go about doing their trainings, all of a sudden the stickers start showing up on water bottles or on the backs of laptops.
There you go.
Teachers start putting the certificates up in the windows. And what it does, in effect, is says to the rest of the student body, this is not a taboo subject. We can talk about this. You don't have to feel ashamed if you're having these feelings. And you're surrounded by people who know exactly what to do because they've been through these trainings. And it literally changes the culture to one of being suicide safer. You can talk about this. You can reach out to someone about this.
And tell me about the situations where you have students training teachers on this. You had mentioned something to me about that earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. This occurred at O'Day High School. They had 4 CLC trainers.
Catholic Lifesaver Corps trainers, right.
And the faculty decided during one of their in-service days where all the kids get to stay home so the teachers can do their thing. They were trained, the teachers were trained by their 4 students. So all of a sudden it's role reversal. The students are training the teachers. And it was just a remarkable thing. And again, adds to that culture change.
What's that like when kids train adults? Because it does turn the tables there. Are these different adults, teachers, et cetera? Are they taking it in? What's that like?
I think it does a couple of things. One is it elevates the dignity of the students, which is a great experience for teachers to have. The other thing is the teachers really can learn from the students because they're the ones in the hallways, on the play fields, in the lunchroom. They're seeing what's going on. One of our trainers would later say, the counselors are not going down to every classroom and checking in on every student. I'm the one that's eating lunch with my friends. I'm the one that's out on the playfield or in the hallways and hearing what they might be saying or what they might be planning. So it makes all the sense in the world for our students to be the ones trained to be on the front lines and for them to share that experience and what they're seeing and hearing through their lens with the teachers. That is incredibly helpful because teachers then get to see through their eyes and understand what is happening on the ground. Yeah. And how do we support as well in our role as teachers and staff and counselors.
And kind of breaking another stigma too, like, oh, students can't do that.
Exactly.
Yes, they can.
Yes, they can.
And they are. And they are. And there's an interesting sidebar here. As students get this training for suicide prevention skills, they're certified to do this work after high school. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, with the Catholic Lifesaver Corps, they work with us typically for 2 years. We train them usually as juniors, and they train for us their junior year, they train for us their senior year, but then they graduate and they go on and do other things. The great news is, though, is it's not the Catholic Lifesaver Corps that's certifying them. It is the Living Works organization that certifies them as trainers. They still have that even when they graduate and go on to college or wherever they're going to go. They can continue to offer these workshops on their own, almost like independent contractors. It becomes a nice little side gig for them. They can charge, they could run it for community centers, or they could do it for their colleges or churches, whatever they want to do, and they can continue to spread this life-giving information that people need and continue to work. And it's fantastic because it spreads.
Yeah.
The goodness spreads.
And speaking about it spreading, you were telling me earlier the Catholic Lifesaver Corps has caught on like wildfire, actually all around the world. There's a school in Australia, apparently, that read about the program in Northwest Catholic. And you were also saying this is work that might be making its way to the criminal justice ministry of the Archdiocese.
That's
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, a while back, Northwest Catholic in 2022 did an article, and that article got shared. A school in Australia picked it up and actually replicated our model, which was fantastic. And all of a sudden, we started getting photos back of their cohorts doing the same thing we were doing, which was just amazing how the Holy Spirit gets a hold of something and does all kinds of things to promote pro-life and goodness literally around the world. Yeah. And then additionally, because the mental health ministry is one of many ministries, the other we offer is criminal justice ministry. Yeah. And a little cross-pollination happened there, and criminal justice ministry sort of learned of this initiative and recognized that in our jails and prisons, suicide is an issue, and people are contemplating that, and they are at high risk for that. And we're interested in this model. So we talked to them about what if we replicated the Catholic Lifesaver Corps model in our prison and trained prison residents to be suicide prevention trainers for their peers. Yeah. And the Department of Corrections actually said, yeah, we're interested in that. We'd love to do that. And so the Archdiocese actually seed funded a pilot that allowed several prison residents to go through the same training retreats that our students do. And they just did their suicide intervention training this month. And then in May, several of them are going to go through the Train the Trainer. And then they'll be certified by Living Works to train on the inside of the prison, changing the culture inside those institutions, those facilities.
That's amazing. I did want to ask a general question here, Joe. Just this idea of what you hope the impact of all this work you're doing is. We talk about the training, but the impact of it. What does success look like to you when you talk about this program?
Yeah, I think success is that it offers a lifeline to people that desperately need it. If you are trapped with thoughts of suicide ideation or you're struggling with mental health difficulties, there's this illusion that you're alone or that you're isolated from any sort of support. And so for me, success is creating the reality that you're not alone, that you're surrounded by so many manifestations of God's love who wants to show up and be on your side and walk you through this and accompany you to resources so that life prevails and that we can protect some of God's beloved people from any sort of self-harm or death. And that to me is the success, and that we change the culture such that people aren't afraid to ask for help in a more direct way or to reach out for help when they need it, to know that they're surrounded by people who know what to do. That means everything to us.
final thought here, when people are in crisis and they do need that help, some of them might be listening to this program. If they're in crisis, or maybe this is someone who knows somebody in crisis, who should they call? What resources would you direct people to?
Absolutely. One of the greatest resources we have locally is the 988 hotline, where you can call 988. It's very much like dialing 911. Call 988 and you will be immediately connected to someone who knows how to talk with you, walk through the issue with you, find you safe resources nearby. It's a great resource. We actually train our trainers that if they're working with someone, a student who might be thinking about suicide, they can actually pull up their cell phones and call 988 together and put it on speakerphone and say,
Sure.
hey, I'm here with so, and they're struggling, and can you help us figure out how to walk through this? So that's a great resource that we really want to promote. And through our mental health ministry, if there's any school or parish that wants free 988 posters or things like that to put up around their campuses, we will provide that for free. So just contact our office and we'll get that to you. So that's one resource. And then the other resource is for people that want to learn how to do this themselves. Either they want to be a Safe Talk trainer or they want to go through an intervention training. LivingWorks offers trainings everywhere. So you can go to the LivingWorks website and find a training and do this yourself, even if you're not part of the Lifesaver Corps.
Thank you so much. Joe Cotton, Executive Director of the Office of the Vicar General for the Archdiocese of Seattle. Thank you so much for taking time with me.
My pleasure, Brian. Glad to be with you.
And thanks to everybody checking out this episode of the Fulcrum Point, where we're talking about the impact of Catholic schools across Western Washington. Download this podcast, share it with friends and family, and please subscribe on Apple, Spotify, whatever platform you're listening on. This show is brought to you by the Fulcrum Foundation. If you'd like to learn more about it, check out fulcrumfoundation.org. And remember, if you're dealing with a mental health crisis yourself, you're not alone. Dial 988 for help. I'm Brian Callanan. It's been my pleasure to listen with you and learn. See you next time.